Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, the critical race theory debate has produced a ton of bad opinions on both sides. Some on the right have inflated just how much of what could credibly be called CRT has made its way into the curriculum. Meanwhile, some on the left have denied that CRT is taught in any K-12 schools anywhere in the country. I want to explore that claim. So I recently spoke with a woman named Kaylee Fontanilla. During the 2020 fall semester, Fontanilla, a high school English teacher working in the Salinas, California school district, high school English language teacher, noticed that many of her students were failing one of their other classes, ethnic studies. Now, this was at the height of the pandemic, and instruction was entirely online, leaving many students in the lurch. Still, Fontanilla thought it was odd to see so many Fs. Salinas has a majority Mexican population. All of her students were Hispanic and were learning English as a second language. Education officials who propose adding ethnic studies to various curriculums, making it mandatory as the Salinas School District did, typically intend for privileged white students to learn about other cultures. So there's a certain irony in requiring members of an ethnic minority to study this, and an even greater irony in the fact that such students were struggling intensely with the course. My students are failing ethnic studies. Fontanilla, who is of Jamaican ancestry, she told me this. I would say half of them are failing this ethnic studies class. So this made her curious about what the course was teaching. All of the high school's teachers used the same online platform to post lesson plans, course materials, so she decided to take a look, and she was shocked by what she saw. This was like extreme left brainwashing of these kids, she told me. Critical race theory all throughout the lessons from start to finish, the whole thing. CRT has become a flashpoint in the debate about what kids ought to be learning in public schools, obviously. Originally an obscure left-wing body of thought that most appeared graduate schools, critics charge it with influencing diversity workshops for major corporations, training seminars for teachers, and even K-12 curriculum. Parental concerns about CRT became a major flashpoint, obviously, in the 2020 Virginia gubernatorial race. After winning the race and taking office, Republican challenger Glenn Youngkin's first act was to ban it. Now, Fontanilla's discovery is significant because it contradicts the liberals' notion that CRT is just never taught in K-12 schools. Slides from lesson plans she provided to me confirm that the ethnic studies course referenced critical race theory by name. The kids don't even want this stuff, she told me, noting that the ethnic studies course replaced a much more popular health class in the middle of a pandemic, no less. Most of them are just like, why do we have to take this class, she told me. So they would have to direct that question to California Governor Gavin Newsom and the state's Democratic-controlled legislature, which decided to mandate ethnic studies for all public schools. Newsom vetoed a previous mandate, which came under fire because the proposed curriculum included jargon such as cis-heteropatriarchy and herstory, that's history with an X, and refers to capitalism as a form of power and oppression alongside white supremacy and racism, according to Cal Matters. The legislature reworked the ethnic studies proposal, and on October 8, 2021, Newsom signed the mandate into law. Beginning with the class of 2030, all public high school students in California will now have to enroll in the same sort of course that Fontanilla's students are already taking. In a statement to the Epoch Times, Dan Burns, superintendent of Salinas Union High School District, denied that the course was based on CRT, though he conceded that CRT is addressed in our course as one of the frameworks within the K-12 ethnic studies outcome list. Sounds like CRT is being taught. Indeed, it's referenced in the district's ethnic course syllabus, which is available online. The syllabus stressed that students will study intergenerational trauma through an interdisciplinary and critical lens. Scholarly articles about critical race theory are included in the suggested curriculum, including Whose Culture Has Capital, a critical race theory discussion of community cultural wealth by Tara Yasso, a UCLA professor of education who specializes in critical race theory. One of the suggested activities for students is an intersectional rainbow. Students will rank their various identities with corresponding colored strings to create intersectional rainbows. Gender, race, class, ethnicity, sexual orientation, beliefs, nationality, ability, age, etc., reads the syllabus. Students will compare and contrast their intersectional rainbows with their peers while framing their discourse within the intersectionality paradigm as laid out by Kimberly Crenshaw. Crenshaw, of course, is a Columbia University law professor, widely recognized as one of CRT's founding figures. Other possible classroom activities include hosting a mock trial where they accuse various historical persons of being complicit in the genocide of Native Californians and, quote, creating a social justice-oriented counter-narrative. Salinas' version of the course included a privilege quiz. Students were expected to rank themselves based on their marginalized status or lack thereof. The lesson plan included an image of two white girls, former Republican President George W. Bush's twin daughters, to be precise, at the top of the privilege hierarchy. If you want to hear more about this course and the teachers who exposed it, you can read my article at Reason.com. If liberals want to defend this kind of course, that's absolutely fine, but they can't say it isn't being taught in schools. It is. Look around you. Hispanic students were being forced to learn this stuff, and they hated it. So I think this is a pretty clear example of what any reasonable person would describe as critical race theory being taught in a high school to Hispanic students who are learning English as a second language. They did not like the course. They wanted their health course back. And you can say it's important, I guess, if you think it is, for them to learn about power and oppression in this very kind of jargony, social justice, grad school way. You can defend that, but you can't say it's not happening anywhere. I'm sure if it's happening there, it's happening, maybe not every school, maybe some schools are safe from this stuff, but it has made its way into the K through 12 curriculum.
And was this a middle school, high school?
This was a high school.
And so, and it also goes to the problem in the Democratic approach to say that this isn't happening. Because A, then all you need to do is find it happening somewhere, and you're like, that wasn't true. But B, and I think more importantly, if you say it's not, CRT is not being taught, what you're doing is sort of condemning it in absentia. You're saying, you're kind of implying that you're against it, but that the Republicans are crazy for suggesting that it's being taught, rather than defending, what your own position is. Defending, and you're certainly not taking a course like this and then explaining to the public why this is a good course to teach, which, if that's your position, that's what you should do. Or don't do this. Like, I don't understand the response to this. Like, either defend what you're doing and say and explain why it's good, or don't do it. But having courses like this, but then saying they're not happening, but not defending them, just doesn't make sense. I don't understand
because
you gotta pick a lane there.
And I think, like, a lot of liberals are pretending that by critical race theory they mean just like, Toni Morrison is available in the English, and we don't want that being taught.
And there are some on the right who do mean that.
And there are conservatives in certain places wanting to remove books that make references to sexuality or race in a way they don't like, or contain sexual images. They want them out of off the library shelves, that I think are very heavy-handed and going too far. But this is different. This is a class. I've looked through the syllabus for it. It's available online. I've looked at the slides of the presentation of it. This is critical race theory. I think it's of very dubious value to be making these students construct privilege hierarchies of how. I mean, these are all underprivileged students, frankly. Whatever time is being spent in this class, they could probably there are better uses of their time.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think anyone would go through this curriculum and say, yeah, this is really rigorous. This is teaching something very vital and important. It's very jargony. It's very it's approaching the kind of diversity training type stuff that we all roll our eyes at.
People don't like to be paid to sit through this stuff.
Right.
The kids aren't even getting paid.
They're prisoners.
Right. So here's my take on what's going on. I'm curious if you think that this accurately describes the situation. I think start with the fact that 80+% of people agree with the statement that students should be taught real American history, good, bad, and ugly.
Yes.
Extremists on both sides then exploit that agreement, because those are the people that they're not the most passionate about it. Like, this isn't the one thing they wake up breathing about day in, day out. So extremists on the kind of corporate diversity DEI side take that agreement with the good, bad, and the ugly, and they smuggle in their corporate diversity stuff everywhere they can possibly get it taught. And a lot of boards and a lot of bosses are like, okay, it's easier for me to just say yes to this than get accused of bad things for saying no to this. Then on the other side, the extremists on the other side take the good, bad, and the ugly and say, yes, we agree with that. Of course, we should teach the good, bad, and the ugly. But then they seize on some of the CRT stuff that's been smuggled in by the DEI crowd, and they then strip out Toni Morrison, and they try to implement their version of good, bad, and ugly, which is really just good. And so then the media focuses on what those people are doing, and the media focuses on what these people are doing, while everybody in the middle is like, we just want a strong historical grounding for our students that doesn't lie about American history, but also doesn't get bogged down in all kinds of weird jargon about privilege hierarchies.
I think that's probably right, and has been the case for a long time. Maybe it's changed a little bit recently, but yes, for a long time, right. The people attending school board meetings, on one hand, you have like crazy lefties who want to like, teach that America is the most evil thing that has ever been invented, and invented slavery itself, and capitalism is a white supremacy. And then also on the other side, a couple number of people attending these that want like the Civil War referred to as the War of Northern Aggression and that kind of stuff, and nobody else is paying attention. But now you do have in the pandemic, with the CRT uproar, I think you have more normal parents getting involved and not liking what they see. But
because they were forced to become teachers.
They were forced to become teachers
at home, and they're
that didn't work out well, did it?
Right.
Didn't work out too well.
Yeah, go back inside school.
Yeah, so, and everyone is going to, sometimes parents are going to have unreasonable requests for what should be taught, or even be, we can strip this of a political context. Why are you failing my kid? Well, your kid's not turning in your homework. But I love my kid, you shouldn't fail my kid. Like, there's nothing new with that. I don't want all the school system to be totally, at the whim of every single parent, because they might have unreasonable demands. But it's clear that the school system has not been responsive enough, not nearly enough to parents' demands. And we are finding some stuff like this, and I guarantee you this is not the only place this has occurred in the country, where, I think that's really dumb. They should not have this class. So I'll be on the hunt for more of it. Just to I don't want to hear. We still hear it on TV all the time. Critical race theory. It's still not taught. Even some reasonable Democrats I know will say that. Okay, I got news for you. It is being taught.
At least in this school.
At least in this school.
Anyway, our rising panel joins us next, and stick around for that.